So for literacy, what you're going to be doing is you're going to be thinking about the traditions or behaviors or beliefs of the culture in a book. So we've been looking at realistic fiction stories that are based around people having different cultures. And we want to really think about that a little bit as we're reading so that when it comes to writing our own, that's reflected. So just like before, I used this example here, which you can watch. I thought I had posted it last week, this story, Jalapeno Bagels, but it hadn't actually got the link highlighted. So I don't know how many people saw that. But that's the one I use to help me with my work. And if you want to see what to do in literacy, you've got this week's genre study. I put up last week's there just in case anyone hadn't finished off some of those tasks. But if you finished all of those tasks, you don't have to worry about that. This week, today's task is a reading task. We're going to be reading or listening to one of the stories that are a realistic fiction story from a different culture. And we're going to be seeing if we can figure out how the culture affects what goes on. So how the culture changes or alters the story. So I listened to Jalapeno Bagels, and then I filled in this little paragraph which explains what I noticed about that. So it says, I listened to Jalapeno Bagels. In Jalapeno Bagels, I know that respecting their Jewish and Mexican background was really important to their family. So this was something that was about their culture and their family. And that is most likely why, after going through all the different foods from both cultures, choosing a food that fit in both to bring to school was what happened. So the fact that they cared about both cultures led to that action taking place. The fact that the little boy decided that he was going to bring in something that represented them both. So what happens a lot in these stories is the culture impacts what happens in the story. So they don't just mention it, they don't just bring it up, but it actually is somehow linked to the problems that are faced in the story, and that results in the characters doing something. So what you're going to do is you're going to pick any two of those stories that is in the list there to listen to again and see if you can complete your own. So you're going to say, in this story, I know that something is really important to their culture. That is most likely why something happened. So you're basically seeing how you can link what cultural behaviors or traditions or beliefs they have link to what happened in the story. And you're going to do two of those. So you have to listen to two stories again, and you can pick whichever one you'd like. Oh, someone else trying to join. And then complete these two. And the sentence starters are there to help you. You also have my example here. If you want to look at the story of Jalapeno Bagels and then look at my example and then do your own, that's what I would suggest you do. So that's what you're going to be doing in literacy. And I'll just go back to the schedule again. In literacy, you're mixing it up this week. So that's your task for today. But for the next 2 days after that, we're going to be thinking about preparing for our writing. And then we have another reading task, and then we're going to start drafting for our writing. So we're doing a mixture this week, not just reading tasks. Last week was just reading tasks you had to do. Now we're starting to think about how we can write our own realistic fiction from different cultures. Okay, and in math today, we're carrying on with the same Walt that we had from before. So we're really thinking about how you can recognize the equivalence between decimals and fractions and how you can show fractions as a percent. What we're going to be doing today is we're actually going to be working on some fluency work. So if you haven't yet finished the representation, don't start today's task. It is really important that if you are still working your way through understanding, you don't start the fluency yet. If you have finished the representation slides, then by all means, you can start today's task. So in the math section, I'll go back to this for you. In the math section, you will find the representation slides. Even if you need to review them and just go back and flick through and double check that you're on the right track, that's still there for you to help you. And then fluency, you're just going to be doing the first 2 pages today. So this is all stuff that was included in the work that you did last week in representation. This is like your level 2 stuff. And the first one, you're going to be writing what the fraction is in, it's in a common fraction, so a fraction that means the same thing, an equivalent decimal on the side. So you're going to write what it would be as its decimal. And you're going to do that for those 3. So you're writing the fraction form and the decimal form there. Then you're going to shade out of these strips what matches A, B, C, and D. Then you're going to write these as decimals. These fractions here, you're going to write as decimals. And then, let me make sure I haven't gone too far. You're just going to do this bottom bit here, which is shading these three graphic things right here, these images. So you're shading the fraction of that decimal that it shows, which you should all be fairly able to do quite easily on your own. If you need to look back for this first page and just check with the representation, by all means do that. Okay, so you're just doing those 2 things for math. Tomorrow you're going to do the next section of fluency work. And you'll note here that I've said continue completing method math calculation section if you have time. So some of you still were working your way through some of the tasks that I had set at the very beginning. You can carry on working your way through some of that if you have extra time. Or you can even carry on in that whole calculation section, giving yourself some practice, because by now that's all the stuff that we've already done. Okay, for social studies now, I want to bring this to your attention on Monday so that you have the whole week until Friday. You're going to be continuing on your work from last week. So all the research, the resources that were given last week are in here as well. So the research that you had done, the planning sheet, and I've seen probably half the classes research, but I'm still missing a few people. So if you haven't done this yet, do this today, because that will mean that you have the rest of the week to make sure that you can get your final task done. If you have done the research today and you've got started on the planning, then you can start your task 1. The sooner that you really think about how you're going to write it or how you're going to perform it, the better it will be. So I saw one person had submitted their final task. I don't want you to submit it until Friday, because I actually want you to spend the time, whether it's a persuasive letter and you're thinking about what types of persuasive devices you can use, because we just did that as a literacy subject, whether it's writing as if none of the changes had happened and you're really trying to make it real and you're showing, not telling. Part of this is about you using those skills as well, not just regurgitating what you've read in your research, but making it personal so that I can understand that you are able to explain how these political personalities made a difference. Okay. So if you haven't done any of that research, please, please, please make sure today that you do that. So the 3 things to do today are your reading task, your first page of math fluency, and wherever you are in your social studies project, to spend a good amount of time on it today. If you get it done earlier on in the week and you just have to hand it in on Friday, your life will be easier. It will be less stressful. If you wait to do all of this until Thursday, 1, the end product might not be as good, and 2, that will hurt your brains. So please use the time. I've extended the hand-in date for a reason. I'm giving you extra time, so do make sure that you're using it. Okay, and I'll stop screen sharing there now. And oh, my video's gone off again. Sorry about that.